We're going to get started here. Thanks again for joining the All Lines Technology Tech Talk session room. For those of you who just joined this room, coming from another room, I'm Brant Gall with All Lines Technology, end-to-end full services provider. I have the pleasure of introducing Patrick Stroh today from Brunnerworks, so let's give him a hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Pat Stroh. I am Vice President of Data Science and Decision Analytics at Brunner. And I'm going to start out with a question. So in terms of, and I'm going to use this I'm going to be moving very quickly here, so I'm going to kind of gloss over terms very quickly. But where do you stand in terms of kind of implementing big data? How many are just kind of curious and kind of nibbling around the edges? A couple? How many are just getting started? All right. How many are kind of midstream kind of pieces are coming together? All right. And how many have kind of a mature platform, do they feel? A couple. So we're kind of a little bit lean toward the middle kind of beginning. So what you're going to learn today is, and I think this will be useful to everyone, is kind of the things that I've distilled from many kind of engagements and that Brunner has had with many different companies that are at those different stages. And there's a lot of kind of nuggets of truth and kind of critical things that I think are very important to convey, not just to people that are beginning, which the talk is kind of leans in that direction, but even if you're kind of just starting out and you're kind of assembling your solution, I think you're going to get value out of this. So we'll talk a little bit about how kind of the business objectives, the platform, all the roadmap kind of comes together for a big data solution. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on kind of what I would refer to as kind of near-term steps. Kind of maintain the long-term focus, but really kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of the specific steps to kind of get moving, get organized, make sure that your initiative is going to be successful. So there's going to be three important things you're going to learn. Number one, if you haven't started, you need to get started right now. That's kind of number one. Number two, some key components and tips. And I'm also going to present what I view as kind of an example roadmap. Now, what's also true is that the situations that your business is in, the marketplace, the business objectives that you have, the tech stack that you have, the staffing, all those things are all over the place. And really kind of, to do a templated roadmap or something like that is pretty bold, pretty ambitious. So I draw it back in a little bit in terms of kind of the basic steps and the basic components here. So just 30 seconds on Brunner. Brunner is a general advertising company located down near the Point. We're probably most famous / infamous for the ad we did for 84 Lumber for the Super Bowl. I was kind of peripheral to that effort, but we do a lot of work at what we refer to as the intersection of creativity, content development, kind of traditional and digital advertising, as well as the implementation of that advertising via technology and consumer-facing systems and advertising systems. And then kind of below that and interacting with that is the data and the science and the analytics of all of those components and measuring and coordinating and optimizing those kinds of things. So that's Brunner. I'm going to move on quickly. So big data. When I think about big data, I think about it really in terms of four kind of major components. There's oftentimes a lot of emphasis up on the right in the kind of the traditional definition of big data is lots of data and variety of data, kind of the standard industry thumbnail of what big data is. But really kind of a big data solution is a lot more than that. It's not just the data and the technology associated with storing it and processing it and integrating devices and different kinds of platforms, infrastructure as a service, those kinds of things. It's also analytics. Talk a lot about visualization and AI and machine learning and things like that, as well as the people in the process. So a big data solution has all of those kinds of components working together. So if you came here for me to focus on Hadoop and how to get a Hadoop cluster on, that's not what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to focus on is coordinating all of these different pieces. So the importance of this to you, and I'm going to go over this very quickly. There's a lot of detail, but if you get started in big data and analytics, you will do well. Oftentimes, magical things will happen if you are successful in doing so. These are just a couple independent studies, and I can send this presentation to anyone if they want to kind of dive down into the specific details of this. But companies that get good at analytics and big data do better on average in terms of the valuation of those companies, in terms of their stock market, price, I guess would be a way to put that. All of those things they do better on. So again, if you're not started, get started, please, because you don't want to be the one down at the lower end of some of these company valuations and growth. Additionally, big data is associated with optimizing, oftentimes, customer experiences. And just a couple nuggets here again. So the one on the left is actually an analysis of the valuation components of mergers and acquisitions. And where does that value come from? Does it come from brand value, your trademarks and things of that sort? Or does it come from your customer value? And you can see customer value and the ability to extract value from that and have strong customer relationships based on personalization and customer relationship marketing and things, kind of the marketing aspects of big data. You can see that that's growing very quite rapidly. Also looking over in terms of customer experience, being able to deliver customer experience through big data, you can see again kind of companies that are good at doing that via analytics are also do much better than those companies that do not. So, very quickly, moving on. If you're not starting out in big data and analytics, please do so. So, the key components of a big data solution. There's really three that I would argue here that we're going to go over. One is the business purpose, clarifying the business purpose of your big data initiative and how you're doing that. The team that you have associated with that effort and that initiative, and then the technology. If you can bring those three things together, that will move you much further along in terms of big data maturity and being able to thrive as a company. So first of all, your team, because I think this is kind of the starting point. I think a lot of times there's discussions of big data solutions, they kind of start with the technology. I would say that you should start by thinking about your team. You should think about a project manager, very kind of down in the weeds here a little bit. Project manager and leading your big data initiative. You need a data munger. So what is a data munger? Somebody define that for me. Does anybody know what that is? A munger of data. Somebody who can grab data from all sorts of different places, make sense of it, access that data, organize it, all those things. It's very, it's not a, I would not put DBA next to that necessarily, that title. It's somebody a little bit more flexible across the tool set that they can use. I would also include a hacker in my group. And here I'm not referring to a black hat hacker that's trying to invade systems and exploit vulnerabilities and things of that sort. I'm talking about somebody, again, that knows a wide range of tools and kind of technologies and programming languages that can really kind of match what the problem is to those particular problems that they're facing. A product manager is very important, a subject matter expert in terms of kind of the space that you're operating in. An executive, so that might be, for example, somebody who's an expert at logistics, or somebody who is an expert in fashion and clothing, things of that sort, depending on kind of what business you're in. An executive sponsor is very important to create space around the team. That team cannot be fragmented, and kind of their second job is to be part of this initiative. They have to have the time to develop this particular system and be protected from kind of harsh treatment if it's not making rapid progress and if it's not impacting the bottom line. That executive sponsor has to protect. It's not just a matter of vision by that sponsor in terms of kind of what the business problem is you're addressing, but it's also a matter of kind of protecting the team and protecting that particular initiative. And finally, kind of at the bottom of this list, I would put an outside partner. An outside partner would be if you don't have the particular staffing or the particular expertise in a technical area especially, but also in terms of new developments in terms in your particular area, you might want to consider an outside partner as part of that. So what kind of obstacles do you run into? I'm going to speed up here if you can believe it. First of all, potential culture shock and conflict. I'm a big believer in that this should not be an IT-led project. I'm not a fan of this kind of IT has got the big data solution. We'll let you know when we've implemented our platform and our particular solution. It requires collaboration across the entire organization, including customer experience, the web dev people, the people maintaining websites, the product delivery or the product managers, as well as IT and other even potentially like finance. Resources. Actually, I should probably move that other bullet up right there. Avoid people that I call road blockers. People that I have to be involved in this like really cool and sexy project, and really they're not interested in getting things moving along. They're more interested in kind of defending their turf, defending their prior technology decisions, defending the profitability of certain kinds of product categories, that sort of stuff. You do not want those kinds of people on that particular team. In most organizations, what you're going to do is you're going to find people that are very, very kind of hungry to kind of put in extra hours, think about new solutions, think outside the box, challenge the status quo. So you need to be, bottom line in terms of your team, scrappy, low cost. It's very possible, particularly in the current days of kind of cloud-based platforms and so on, and open source tools and things of that sort. Stress sprints, and let that executive sponsor protect the team and make sure progress is moving on. Point number two, area number two, kind of the business objective or purpose. Notice I kind of did the team first, now the objective. Some people might reverse that. I tend to think of it in terms of people. So clearly it's necessary to scan kind of the SWOT, what your company is operating in. I also think it's very useful to look at startups that are in your particular area and think about what are they doing? Are they doing kind of cool things? What kind of new technologies are they bringing to bear? Then establishing a vision about where you're going to go, what kind of area you're going to explore, developing kind of use case and implementation scenarios. I wouldn't spend months doing this, which some organizations are quite capable of doing. I would try to spend less than a week or two in developing kind of use case and business case kinds of scenarios. And then think about a scope of a proof of concept for your particular product or big data implementation. So potential obstacles, lack of focus and analysis paralysis. There's lots of options, there's lots of stuff going on, there's uncertainty, there's thousands of startups popping up. If you ever watch, if you monitor CBI Insights every day, it's like they list the 400 startups in each particular area. It's like, it would take you months just to go through those. Okay, and I'm getting the 5-minute mark, believe it or not, so I'm going to speak even faster. Keep an experimental attitude. Try to parallelize multiple initiatives. And then also kind of try to pick an admirable competitor or startup, figure out what they're doing, try to mimic them, try to build something similar. That's what I would advocate for. So in terms of those use cases, I'm not going to go over this. You can, again, if you want this presentation, you can see some of this, but this is just kind of the broad range of things that a lot of different industries and kind of markets have. There's a lot of commonalities down at the bottom having to do with user experience and pricing and things like that, which I think are very interesting. Finally, the technology. Think about what data you have, what exists right now, what potential data you could actually create, like new data by gathering it in a different way. Think about your existing tech stack. Think about particular platforms that you might implement. I always loved this thing as the platforms as a service, infrastructure as a service, this kind of pizza So how you can assemble a pizza. There's different ways that you can assemble a pizza, right? You can do it. You can have the company do it, that sort of thing. Think about kind of the different platforms that you can use. Also testing those and doing some self-service analytics. So connecting tools up that broaden out the number of people that are connecting into that project. Here's an example roadmap that kind of puts all these different pieces together. So you have, I'm going to step down here just real quick. So you have kind of a startup and kind of developing your objectives and getting kind of your initial data situation kind of straightened out. That kind of startup activity, I think, can occur for most companies within 3 months. You should have a very good idea of where you're going and kind of how you're doing it within 3 months, kind of from ground zero. Then it's more of looking at your tech stack, thinking about different kinds of platforms and how you develop your proof of concept, and then also thinking about how, if this initiative is successful, also simultaneously thinking about how it would impact the organization of your business, the culture of your business, all of those things. But this is kind of the general flow, I would argue, for a big data initiative. I always end with this last thing. How many do I have? 2 minutes, okay? Don't try to jump too far. There's a tendency for people to be kind of over on what I call the plateau of mediocrity, which is they're kind of floating over here. They're really not doing big data. They think it's important. They think analytics is important, machine learning, and then they start thinking about these kind of big solutions, really big program implementations, hiring a data science staff, et cetera, being the innovative, big kind of dreamy, good ideas. Right? It's not necessarily, I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but what they get caught up in is kind of this valley of crushed dreams. Hopefully you're not one of those little skull and crossbones down the bottom there, which is fragmented data and complex tech stack. You need to be able to start out very kind of incrementally and build your way across that. So the idea is to get started, focus on short-term doables, and build your knowledge and business case. I would end with this. Think about Amazon, and right now it looks like this big, huge monolithic thing that's taking over the world in certain respects. They did something very incremental. That business was built very incrementally, learning, building the technology, building the data systems, and so on and so forth. You can, and I would kind of end on this, you can do something very similar. Maybe you're not going to be Amazon, maybe not, but you can do something very similar. And it starts by focusing on the big data and machine learning and customer experience, I would say. Finally, so in summary, big data is essential to your business success. I think everyone here at this meeting would agree with that. I would say it's focused very strongly on improving customer experience and products and services and delivery. My advice, if you're not already, get started. Number 2, move fast, stress fast and learn, okay? And stay committed. If you have any questions, you can contact me, Pat Stroh. I'm up there on the left, but you can also refer to some other gentlemen here that work at Brunner, our CIO, John Roden, Rick Gardner. Also, John Ganofsky, if you can wave your arm around over there, is Vice President of Innovation at Brunner. And if you have any other questions, please direct them to one of us. Thank you very much. And I just got the